Hello everybody, it's Hater. Welcome back to another Destiny 2 build video, and today we are going to be talking about yet again another Solar 3.0 build. In the last video we talked about a Warlock build using Sunbracers where you can chain infinite energy with melee and grenades. That video will be down in the description or in the top right if you're interested. But today we're going to talk about the Titan, Solar 3.0 Titan, and a build I put together which I think you guys are going to really enjoy because it does something of the similar sorts. Just like the Solar 3.0 Warlock with Sunbracers, we're able to chain infinite abilities back to back to back, but in this case we'll be using the Heart of Inmost Light to create a bunch of sunspots, constant healing, and enough abilities to set the galaxy aflame. So as per usual, if you guys found this video helpful and you enjoy the builds that I put out, then the best way to support the channel is by giving the video a like and subscribing so you'll be up to date whenever a new build video goes out. Enough of me hyping it up though, let's get into the build video. Starting things off guys with how this build is going to work, we're using the exotic chest piece Heart of Inmost Light. Even though recently this was quote unquote nerfed, it still is quite powerful and one of the best exotics to run. Its exotic perk is going to give us ability energy to all of our abilities after using one ability. So if we throw our grenade, it empowers both our melee and our barricade. If we use our barricade, it empowers our melee and our grenade. This empower buff means that those abilities are going to regen faster and deal more damage, but if it's the barricade, it'll have more HP. This paired with the brand new Solar 3.0 subclass is going to be extremely potent because we have a perfect combination of both top, middle tree, and bottom tree Sunbreaker put into one. Fundamentals from the top tree like Hammer Strike, Roaring Flames from middle tree, and Soul Invictus from bottom tree are all available to be used at one given time here. When we use them in conjunction with Heart of Inmost Light, we're able to create sunspots left and right, ability damage that stacks with Heart of Inmost Light, and constant ability uptime paired with the new Fragments. Speaking of which, since we're talking about the new Fragments and the aspects, let's jump on over to the subclass and break down what we'll be using in this build. And starting off over at the left with the melee attack, I prefer using the new Hammer Strike. The reason for that is because they added an extra effect to it. When you hit an enemy with your Hammer Strike, you scorch them, meaning they take damage over time. If you kill them though with your Hammer Strike, it makes them ignite instantly, dealing damage to everything nearby. Like I said, I personally enjoy using it the most because we're able to pair Heart of Inmost Light's damage buffs and Roaring Flames all at the same time, meaning I can use a 1-2 punch shotgun with it. This is also going to be much more lethal later on when we're able to use the new Ember of Char fragment, meaning when we ignite something from killing it, it'll send out a bunch of scorch damage to everything nearby. If you're not a huge fan of Hammer Strike though, you of course can use the throwing hammer if that's what you prefer using. Now moving on over to the big boys, the aspects themselves, we're going to be using both of them as I mentioned earlier. Roaring Flames from Middle Tree Sunbreaker, which gives you ability damage for your solar abilities whenever you get final blows with your solar abilities or ignitions. This is going to stack all the way up to 3 times and give your solar abilities 72.8% more damage. Meaning when one of our abilities is ×2 with Heart of Inmost Light, our melee attack is going to deal 108% more damage and 134% more damage if it's our grenade. For the other aspect we'll be using in this, as I mentioned earlier, is from bottom tree Sunbreaker, Soul Invictus. Solar ability final blows, Hammer of Soul impacts, and defeating scorched targets are going to create sunspots. While we stand inside of them, our abilities are going to regenerate faster, and our super drains more slowly when we're inside of a sunspot. Sunspots are also going to apply the Scorch debuff and deal damage to targets inside of them. Entering it is going to give us the Restoration effect. Restoration is one of the new effects that Solar 3.0 has. This just means you regenerate your health and shields over time, and it can't be interrupted by damage. Think of it as a buff that just gives you constant healing. Moving down over to the fragments, starting at the left, we're going to be using Ember of Torches so that powered melee attacks will make us radiant, meaning whenever we hit an enemy with our shoulder charge, or if you're using the throwing hammer, it'll empower your weapons for 25% more damage. Since we're always going to have our melee attack up because of Heart of Inmost Light, we're pretty much going to have constant 25% weapon damage. For the next fragment, we'll be using Ember of Ashes. All this does is increase the amount of Scorch stacks enemies are going to take, meaning that we're going to stack Scorch up faster, and when they reach enough, they'll ignite, dealing more damage. For the next fragment, Ember of Blistering. This is going to give us grenade energy every time an ignition procs. If you're not using the Hammer Strike melee here, you can trade it out for something else like Ember of Singeing to give you class ability energy from Scorch effects. I just personally enjoy using it because it has a synergy with Hammer Strike. And then finally, for the last fragment, we'll be using Ember of Solace. This is going to make our radiant and restoration effects that we gain from Sol Invictus and Ember of Torches last upwards to 15 seconds long. Later on down the road, when we have all of the fragments unlocked, I would change this build up a little bit where I'm not using Ember of Blistering, but Ember of Char and Ember of Empyrean instead of Ember of Ashes. Ember of Char is going to spread those scorch effects to other enemies when you ignite something, and Ember of Empyrean is going to increase the duration of both our radiant and restoration effects every single time we get a kill with a solar ability or solar weapon. Until then, for now though, just use what you find comfortable when you're running this build. Now that we're done going over the Solar 3.0 subclass itself, let's move on over to my armor and break down the mods we'll be using in this build. And starting off, the first thing you want to make sure is you have 3 pieces of armor that are at least solar for this build. I like using 3 of them for solar because there are a bunch of solar well mods to combine with your solar subclass. Starting off over at the helmet, I have mine as Arc and I'm using Melee Well Maker. This is going to create a solar elemental well every time I get a kill with my melee ability. Relatively self-explanatory. Next to it though, I'm pairing 2 harmonic siphons with it because I'm using Sunshot in my build. You could literally use anything else that you find preferable. This is just what I use. Moving on down to the arms, this is one of my armor pieces that I have solar, and I actually like having this one solar because I'm using 2 impact inductions. Basically now on top of Heart of Inmost Light and my subclass giving me ability energy, every time I deal damage with my melee, it gives me grenade energy. Then I'm also using this slot for Well of Life, so whenever we pick up a solar elemental well, we gain constant healing on top of the healing we already have from sunspots. Moving down to the Heart of Inmost Light, I have it as Arc, and I would prefer that you guys look to have your armor pieces Arc in this season, specifically your chest piece because of the brand new artifact mod, Armor of the Dying Star. Just like Thermoshock plating from last season, this is a dual energy mod that reduces incoming damage from both element typings. In this case, for this season, it is Solar and Void. So what we do is pair a Arc Resist mod on top of it so we reduce incoming damage from all 3 element sources. And then the mod I'll be pairing with this is a Elemental Ordnance. So now on top of my melee creating a solar elemental well, my grenades are going to create solar elemental wells. Moving down over to the boots, this is yet again another piece I have solar, and I'm using Bountiful Wells at the end of it. So now on top of my melee and my grenade creating wells, this is going to double up on them and make them create 2 each. And then next to it, to double down on Well of Life and my Sol Invictus, I have a recuperation so those orbs of power I create instantly give me HP back. And then finally, moving down over to my class item, this is my 3rd and final armor piece. I have solar, and I'm using Explosive Well Maker so that anything that is considered explosive damage, my grenade, ignitions, and my Sunshot or any explosive weapon will create solar elemental wells. And because we're using Bountiful Wells, it will also create 2 of them at the same time. This can also proc with my Elemental Ordnance since my grenade is considered explosive damage, meaning if I get kills with my grenade, it'll create 4 elemental wells on kill. And then to pair with it, since this piece is solar, I'm using 2 bomber mods, so I gain even more grenade energy if I use my class ability. Overall though guys, that is going to be the build for today's video. This build is absolutely so much fun to play, and if you want to build around and mess around with any of the exotics or weaponry in this build, I like to use a 1-2 punch shotgun, sunshot, pretty much any solar weapon to pair with it. And then if you don't like Heart of Inmost Light, you could trade it out for something like Loreley Splendor Helm for even more damage resistance. If you have any questions though, feel free to leave them down in the comments or come ask me over at my stream where I play Destiny 2 and Lost Ark on the daily. Other than that, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I'm going to catch you in the next one. Bye bye.